This podcast contains potentially adult language, adult themes, definitely drinking, and possibly sexual context. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Drinking with Authors, the podcast. I'm your host, Erica Lance. My co-host today is
Vanessa Valiente.
And Vanessa, do you want to announce our guest? Because I know how excited you are about this.
Amazing. Brian D. Anderson. Woo! I'm waving in my face, but yes.
And she's waving it around and nobody can read it, and it was pretty, okay, there we go.
There it is.
Bird's blade.
On YouTube, there's the cover.
Yes. Okay, Brian, welcome to the podcast. We're going to start with what we're all drinking. So I am drinking a gin and tonic, but there is a place called Half Mine in Dunedin, Florida, and they're brewing gin and rum and stuff like that, and it is actually amazing, and they put their batch numbers on it. A friend of mine gave me this, and it's like a cucumbery gin thing, and as you can see, I opened it tonight, and anyway, needless to say, I had my gin and tonic like a boss. Vanessa, what are you drinking?
Mine is kind of plain Jane. I'm drinking out of my Drinking with Authors cup as well. I have just some plain old Absolute vodka and water because, yeah, I need to tone it down a little bit, and I drank way too much wine with Chuck last night, or on our podcast, obviously, but you know what I mean.
We're going to get to what Brian's drinking, but I just want to clarify for the audience, because you're saying you're toning down your wine drinking with vodka.
Okay. Makes sense to me.
Yeah. We're going to move on from this.
Listen, I think in my mind it's because it's not like pure, it's more diluted. So there, guys, and I'm lightly sipping because, you know, I want to be able to go to bed with, you know, with a clear head or semi-clear head, no headaches is what I mean.
I don't even know where you're going with that. I think you've literally signed your own thing.
You know what it is? I'm just selling myself my own bullshit to try to justify.
I'm proud of you for that. That's the first time I've heard somebody go, instead of drinking wine, I'm going to dilute it with vodka, and I'm going to be
responsible.
like a bot. Well done.
I was going to smoke a joint, but let me be responsible and shoot some heroin.
Exactly. Don't smoke up the room that way.
Oh. I'm probably still hungover from the wine of yesterday. That's what it is. I blame it on the hangover. That's what.
That's what we're doing. Okay, Brian, what are you drinking for the audience at large?
Well, I was going to drink Heineken's, but unfortunately my Heineken's vanished. So, therefore...
So you also made it a lighter fare by going to Jack Daniels, the way she made it a lighter fare. I didn't do it because I drank beer
yesterday. I'm doing it because that's what I have in the house. I mean, don't get me wrong. I drink Jack Daniels regularly. So, ask your doctor if Jack Daniels is right for you. Side effects may include incarceration, loss of job, loss of marriage. You know.
Oh my goodness.
But I'm pretty much all I ever drink is Heineken and Jack Daniels. So I mean, and at least I have one of the two things that I drink. I fear change, so I don't drink anything else.
That's very good. At least you didn't have to come in and go, okay, so all that's left in my house is a smoothie, like strawberry kiwi smoothie. So that's what I'm drinking.
Well, I would at least have like played it off and like went and got up some water and said I was drinking Everclear and tried to at least look cool.
That would have been make your own. Was it those delicious hand grenades in New Orleans? Have you had those?
Hurricanes are a big thing around here. I'm actually only about 2 hours away from New Orleans. I'm over in the. Yeah, okay. Well, you know where Mobile, Alabama is.
Yeah.
I live across the bay in a little town called Fairhope, and this little artsy little community. Imagine what if San Francisco had a love child with Mayberry. It's it's got this beautiful downtown area, like a little mom and pop bookshop, little boutiques all over the place. There's the bay, has a pier down by the Mobile Bay. It's a gorgeous little town. You're actually true fact. Your IQ jumps up 5 points when you cross the city lines.
Wow. There are many people I'm going to send to the city to see if we can make that happen, because
we need to send a lot of people to cross over that, because lately people are being real dumb.
So many people.
Well, you know what they say about people? They're stupid.
That is so true. Okay, Brian, for the fans out there that don't know who you are, can you talk a little bit about what you write?
Well, I am a writer of primarily epic fantasy. Excuse me. I started as an independent author back in 2011. I had, back when we call it kind of the golden age of independent publishing, between 2010 and 2012, when it really exploded, and you had guys like Hugh Howey breaking the internet with Wool. Michael Sullivan, who got big, and then he was one of the first original authors who transitioned over from indie into traditional. All these great, and I came up at around that time with the Godling Chronicles, and then it did real well for me. I started being able to make a living, so I followed that up with Dragonvein. During that time, I actually picked up an agent thanks to Michael, believe it or not. Michael Sullivan helped me out with that. He introduced me to Lori McLean over at Fuse Literary, and she helped me get my first audio deal for the Dragonvein series. And Dragonvein, the first audiobook was in 15 a top five finalist for audio fantasy book of the year on Audible. Now Jim Butcher won that year, but honestly, it was great because I was up there with Terry Pratchett, who's a legend. Just Larry Correa, N.K. Jemisin, and there was me. I think I was the first indie, and at least indie in fantasy. I'm positive of that, to be a finalist. But indie was just starting to get more recognized as a legitimate, part of the genres and a part of genre fiction. So then, my career kept going with Akiri, which I co-authored with Steven Savile, who you might know from the Warhammer and Pathfinder, and he wrote for the Doctor Who franchise and the Sherlock Holmes franchise. He was actually Kevin J. Anderson was one of his mentors, and who I gotten to know Kevin through the conventions. Kevin's a great guy. And then eventually I've been transitioning over the past 2 years to traditional publishing. I signed a 3-book deal with Tor Books. Book 1, The Bard's Blade, which you held up at the beginning. Yep, that one. And was the first of my first foray into traditional publishing. Second book, Chorus of Fire, is out, and I just finished up the third book, The Sword's Elegy. Actually, I'm sending it to the editor Monday. So that's sort of who I am and what I do. I've been at this for about 10 years, what you consider a hybrid author. So a little bit of indie and a little bit of traditional.
How's been that whole transition between the two? Like, has it been, like, what's been the most surprising experience between the two? Because sometimes, some people feel like they have to be one or the other, and, you get the best of both worlds.
Well, what surprised me the most is how easy the transition was, because, when all this kicked off, when indie kicked off as, when it started getting popular and we were, every week there was a new article just lambasting indies, telling we were ruining literature and all this, and that slowly, you still see that, just not as much. So, but because of that, you also get a lot of horror stories coming out that of indies, dealing with traditional, and they're hating it. So I had a lot of negative feelings going in, and all of those were, completely proven wrong. There was some things that, I had to get used to, like when you're an indie, you have complete control over everything. But that's not always a good thing, though. having other voices that you not only want to listen to, but you sort of have to listen to, can be productive. Especially, like my editor over at Tor, Lindsay Hall, is spectacular. I mean, I think she was 28, 29 years old when she became a senior editor at Tor, and she wasn't there because for no reason. She obviously knew what she was doing. So having to listen to that sort of input, it rubs you raw right at first. You just got to swallow your ego and realize that the other people might know something too, and it improved the way I tell stories, and helped me slow down and realize that that there are some of the traditional wisdom that I was following that I still follow, in certain cases, that I could depart from that. And I don't know. My only experience with traditional publishing really is audio, which I have almost no interaction with. It's just all the contracts, and I give them the manuscripts, and they do the rest. And with Tor, so Tor as a company has been fantastic. They're almost like a little indie publisher in themselves, the way they interact with their authors. You don't get this corporate feeling that I've heard described with other companies.
No, I think that's very true. We talk to a lot of authors, and I think that you can have a good traditional experience. I think that it's better when they're smaller. It's better when they remember their roots, where they came from. And there's a point, like any business in the world, and you see this a lot in startup companies too, where they had amazing culture. They're like awesome to work for. Then they go public, or they get to a certain size, and all of a sudden they're not so much fun to work for anymore, because all the corporate rules come into play, and then you're into a machine instead of an idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's almost unavoidable though when you get to a certain size, and you start starting to take on certain legal liabilities and responsibilities. That sort of bureaucracy starts to creep in and sort of take away your vision. I don't see how you would ever avoid that. I mean, unless you're a guy like Elon Musk, who is just so bases everything he does on like just shit he wants to do that pops into his head, and just doesn't. It seems, I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert on Musk, but it just seems to me like I want to build a tunnel underneath LA, so he starts building a tunnel. Well, that didn't fucking work, but hey, let's try this over here. You know what I mean? Like, I love that. I mean? So unless you're a guy like that, I don't see how you avoid losing your culture once your business becomes a certain level, attains a certain level of success. Even as authors, look how some authors have the way they conduct themselves early on compared to the way they conduct themselves later on. Well, it's almost a necessity because you're having to deal with so much more than you did in the beginning. You're having to deal with you start out dealing with one or two people, and now you got like a dozen people in your life, all revolved around this one piece of work that you're trying to produce. It's a different, the experience just changes. You can't be that renegade rogue that you once were. Now you got to be a business person.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree at all. So you said you started in 2011,
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay, I'm remembering dates.
Actually, I started in 2010, but I published in 2011.
What made you decide you wanted to write?
I never did. I was a professional musician for a long, long time. I used to love writing. I just never took it seriously, and I did it for fun. But I could never get my head around a story. I would write these clever little short stories that had great twists, and they were real edgy little pieces, but there wasn't anything substantial to it. It was like it was an intellectual exercise. Let me show you how clever I am, as opposed to let me tell you a good story. And it wasn't until my son, who was like 7 years old at the time, seeing what I was doing, he wanted to be involved, and he came up to me and said, "Hey, Dad, I got an idea for a story." And I pried myself away from the computer and listened to him, and I was amazed with what he came up with. He said, "Hey, Dad, will you write it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, of course I will." I mean, I had to make adjustments, of course, because he was 7. But what came out of it was the Goblin Chronicles, and honestly, that's me getting the encouragement from my wife to take my writing more seriously. Combined with that is kind of what I guess you could say I sort of Forrest Gumped my way into this.
That is an awesome story. I love that it's inspired by your 7-year-old going, "I've got an idea, Dad. Can't wait
Well,
to
if you look at the covers,
I'm going to rewrite that idea, Dad."
well, if you look at the covers, it says original concept by Jonathan Anderson. Not on that. That's the Barnes one. That was my indie stuff. You can't even get in paperback. It's all digital. I just actually. This is how old it is. I had the original audio deal I made before I got an agent with Podium Publishing, and that expired, and I just resold it to Audible.
Wow! Wow!
After all these, and it's weird because after all these years, people still dig it, and I was to say I was amateurish. Would be an understatement. I was making all these literary mistakes, things I would never do today. I mean, these huge information dumps. Remember the first book I wrote it not long after I'd read a bunch of Robert Jordan. So if you notice in the first book, I describe a bunch of clothing, and I'm. And I know, and somebody said, "Dude, did you just read Robert Jordan right after you wrote right before you wrote this?" I'm like, "Yeah," because you can tell.
Oh my God! No, I think we all improve as authors. Like we just get better at the craft, and well, most people get better, and hopefully they don't lose themselves in trying to generate a series for the sake of generating it versus the passion for writing the series. Because I think we've all kind of seen that stuff happen too.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, that's why it took me so long to put a sequel out to the Goblin Chronicles. I had people were asking me for it for years and years, and I'm like, I just don't have a story. I concluded the original series. I knew there could be more, but I just didn't have anything for it that I thought would do the original 6 books justice. And eventually I did come up with something, and that's when I did that. And but I had written, by the time I got to that, I'd written a bunch of other books. I think I have 20 novels out right now.
I was going to ask, how many novels do you have out? Because
I have 20, and it'll be, once I finish the Vale and Akiri series, and this one comes out, it'll be 23.
That is awesome. What kind of musician were you?
Not a very good one.
Well, you were doing it for many, many years, so obviously at the time you must have thought you were okay.
I was a road guy. I mean, I was a clubber. Playing nightclubs and cruise ships and stuff like that. I moved to New York trying to do my own original stuff, and learned very, very quickly that while my lyrics were very good, my songwriting was very two-dimensional. It just never really had. I actually wrote songs with people that turned out really well, but every time I tried to go on my own, it was just I was always missing something. I mean, I have a friend of mine, Jacob Bunton, he's a professional songwriter. He actually scores movies and stuff like that too, and he's always natural talent, and he's just a natural songwriter. He just knows what sounds good together, and I've always envied him that talent. It just sort of comes to him. Where me, I'm like, I can get like a decent hook or a decent verse, but I could just never make it sound like it should sound, And the sad, tragic part of that is I was good enough to where I was sort of Salieri that way. I was good enough to recognize how bad I was.
does that. Not everybody does that.
Does this mean that like I almost feel like you're excellent at dialogue or something, because you say that you're really good at writing like these one lines. Are you like a strong dialogue writer, or are you good at writing description, or maybe both?
Well, apparently he describes clothes very, very well.
Yes,
I can describe a dress that make you think I'm Louis Vuitton. But no, I don't know. I mean, I try to make my writing very accessible. I don't use a lot of purple prose. I try to be as direct and straightforward as I can. It's not that I don't have the vocabulary. It's that I try to write the way I like to read. Now, I'm an entertainer. I'm not writing the next great American novel. I'm not trying to make people think deep thoughts. It's pure entertainment. And if a lot of time when you come home and you're tired, slogging through Tolkien sometimes is hard. And he's one of my favorite, if not my all-time favorite authors. But the weighty thickness of his prose, it just is too much sometimes. But then you read guys like Brandon Sanderson, who is obviously super duper talented, but he's also easy to read. And you're not sitting there going trying to put a word into context to understand its definition. He doesn't feel like he's not attempting to write above you. He's trying to write for you, and that's one of the things I love about his. That's also a thing I love about Rothfuss, and his writing is very, very beautiful, but it's also very simple if you look at it. There's not the concepts and the way he frames things have a lot of complexity to it, but not so much with the language. Now, I'm not comparing myself to Rothfuss in any way, shape, or form, even though other people have, and I appreciate that. I just disagree. He's better than I. But and as far as like what I do best, I really couldn't say. It's
what is easy for you, not what you do best. What is easy for you to do?
Oh God.
Because we know it's not 60,000 words in a month. We know that's not easy. So
no, that's not easy.
What is easy?
I don't know. I mean, none of it's all that hard. It's not like when you get to a certain when you're starting out and you're trying to attain a certain level in your prose, and you finally cross over into that professional level to where you can send it to the major publishers, and they're not criticizing your writing, they're criticizing your story. So you reach a certain level of prose, an ability to where a lot of it's not really that hard to write dialogue. It's not that hard to write descriptions. Depending on how detailed I want to make it, I have to sit and think a little bit. But it's not difficult. It's just I'm trying to. It depends on what I'm going after. Am I trying to paint a scene that's breathtaking, or is this just scenery as they're walking down the street that I don't need to pay a lot of attention to? Where am I dropping these details, and how am I drawing attention to it? The writing itself, once you get, I've written 20 novels. It's just. I almost don't have to really think all that much to put down a legible draft, because I've done it so many times. It's just a lot of it comes out by rote, which is also a pitfall, because I tend to get stale. So that's when I want to step back, read somebody else, another author's writing, so I could sort of clean all my own garbage out, then come back to it fresh. Maybe, okay, yeah, I shouldn't have said this here. Let's frame this a little bit different. I'm overusing this turn of phrase, that kind of thing. But I wouldn't say that any of it's that hard. Not at this stage. At first, it really was, and I was just going nuts over every paragraph, trying to make it sound like it was somebody who knew what they were doing. But not anymore. And I think if you ask writers who've been doing this a while and have had success, and they'll pretty much say the same thing. The writing itself is not the challenge. It's the frame of the story and engaging the writer and creating something people like. That's the challenge.
It almost sounds like it's also just getting to the point of just putting words down and finishing it, which is again I feel the theme of my life right now is finishing it, because it's like at some point you just have to put words down.
You can't edit what's not on the page.
Exactly, because my problem is how you were describing, like how you started, where it's like trying to make it seem like I know what I'm doing, or like writing like this perfect sentence or writing this perfect paragraph, and then it sounds at some point you were like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna like go through this. Doesn't matter if it's easy or not or whatever. You just go right and finish it.
Don't worry about how pretty your writing is. You know what I mean? But you can't, because you can't edit what's not on the page. And I love beautiful prose just like anybody else. But I'm there. If you're writing genre fiction, you're telling a story. Pay attention to the way you're telling the story. You can always go back and edit the prose. You can always go back and affix a sentence. I think the craft of storytelling is I wouldn't say more important, but equally important as your skills as a writer. You know what I mean? As a crafter of sentences and paragraphs, and your ability to describe a mountain range it's great to be able to do that and do it well. But unless you're able to engage the reader into your story and sort of kind of make them forget that they're reading, then all the beautiful prose in the world doesn't matter. And I've seen that multiple times with aspiring writers who are obviously brilliant, and obviously have a lot of intellectual muscularity, but they think that's enough to make that. They think that because they're looking at guys like me who and many other writers like me who aren't writing at this highly sophisticated level of prose, and theirs is that why are nobody recognizing my genius? And what they don't understand is it's not that I'm not capable of it. It's not that I don't have the vocabulary to do it. Nobody wants to read that. People read fantasy because they love fantasy. They want to be engaged. Now, not to say some of the prose can't be very beautiful, and a lot of it is, but it's not enough. And some of the and I read authors, and I look at their writing, and I'm like, oh my God, I'll never be that good. Luckily, I don't have to be. I write at a professional level, so that I can use that to tell the stories, that I want to tell. And it's, hope maybe as years I'll get better. If I don't, it's not from lack of trying, it's probably lack of old, or an abundance of old. But
well, I think by nature you get better. It's it's interesting. When I many moons ago, I did track, and one of the things my track coach said, which was I thought one of the most brilliant things, because I started mid semester, whatever we're calling it in high school. Didn't do it when I was younger, long distance running. And I remember the first time, like, I did the distance, I almost died pretty much in my mind, because whatever. But the track coach said to me, I asked, like, how do I get better? What can I do? Are there exercises and stuff? And she literally was like, run. That's how you're going to get better. Run.
Oh, yeah.
Keep running. Push yourself.
And that's what I tell every writer. Write more. If you want to get better at it, write more. Read. If you want to, say if Sanderson, I'm going to bring him up again. Say if he's your literary hero, and today he's like, pretty much one of the gold standards in fantasy. And like I said, I absolutely adore the way he writes. It's accessible, yet has enough complexity to where it's also, you don't feel like you're reading mid grade. And if that's where you want to be, read a lot of Sanderson and a lot of guys like that. Pay attention to what he does. Pay attention to the way he frames dialogue. Pay attention to the way he describes something and the way he sets a scene. And right, those are the two. Those are the two ways you become a better writer. Read people whose writing you appreciate, who you like to emulate, and then write a lot. I don't. If there's another way to do it, I haven't run across it.
No, I agree 1,000%. So I want to ask you, through your process, how do stories come to you? Like, besides your children, obviously, that you stole from, got it. Besides them, where do the stories come from when you go to write them? Where does your inspiration mainly come from?
You know what? That's a tough one because it just sort of comes sporadically. I'm sitting there talking to the voices in my head, and one of them will come up with an idea.
No, I people watch. I do HR. I people watch. I get so many ideas from just watching interactions with humans or stories of interactions and going, what if I did this? What if I did this different thing with this story? For me, I get a ton of inspiration from that kind of like, let me take this and then put it in my horror genre or my erotica genre. But a lot of my horror stories, which none of them have happy endings.
Internet would be great for erotica.
That's very true. But, and I write humorous erotica, so I really I listen to my friends tell me the stories of their dating, foibles or whatever, weird relationship things, and I go, this would be a funny part to a story, and I can take that little nugget and then blow up the scene or the interaction or whatever. That's where I find that I get a lot of stuff. Not that ideas don't come to me. I was on the road
for a long time as a musician. I think it could probably...
Exactly.
So wait, I have to ask, do you feel
he didn't answer the question. He needs to answer the question.
Where do I get my... just from, sometimes... For every 10 ideas, or more like every 50 ideas I get, only one of them ever ends up being a book. It's easy. I could sit here and just start coming up with something, and just, at random if I really pressed myself and started working my brain. But, okay, for example, the Bard's Blade. Mark Lawrence, he runs this contest called Spiffbo. Self-published fantasy blog off, and if anybody is especially if you're a self-published author, you should check it out. There's a lot of great indies. There's always diamonds in the rough, people unknowns coming up, and all of a sudden they're great talents. Devin Madsen came out of Spiffbo. ML Wang came out of Spiffbo. This just a lot of great new talents has come out of there. Anyway, I had just finished writing, finished up one book, and I was halfway finished with another, and I was sitting at the side to get some rest. And as a palate cleanser, I decided to try Flax Fiction. Now, I had never done Flax Fiction before. So, and for those of you who don't know what Flax Fiction is, somebody gives you a subject matter, like in this particular case, it was a picture from of some fan art for one of Mark Lawrence's books, and you had to use two words within the two specific words, and it couldn't be any longer than 300 words long. Now, I failed miserably because I can't keep anything under 300 words. I write
60,000 words later, and you're like, oh shit, it's a whole
I couldn't enter because I tried to enter, and I was like, hey, look, okay, I got it down to 400. Come on, man. And they're like, nope. And I was like, all right. But by the time I finished this little Flash Fiction piece, I had an idea for a full novel. And
wow. But was the piece like a character that kind of
It was
like?
just a scene. It was
It was
just a scene. It was just a scene,
Does it
and
exist in this book now?
yeah, actually, it does.
Okay.
It doesn't exist the way I wrote it, but there are a few lines in the Bard's Blade that were in that original Flash Fiction piece. Yes,
All right. Nice.
and I remember reading it to Mark to Mike. I went and visited Michael Sullivan and his wife Robin. They have a beautiful little cabin in the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia. Um, went and read it to them, and actually one little line that got dropped because Robin made fun of me about it. I was like, "Yeah, you're right. That sucks. Let me take that out of there." But I mean, just an example of one way that I get inspiration. Um, the Vale series, which I love very, very much, was inspired by my love for RPGs, like Tales of and Final Fantasy. I wanted to do a novelized version of that style of storytelling. I didn't even. There's a thing called Lit RPG, and I don't. You don't level up or anything in the Vale. It's not like that. I wasn't even aware of that genre when I wrote it. So I put all the character types of these different video games that I enjoy into an original world, and so it just that sort of just came together. Akiri came to me just because I was like, man, I love Conan so much, but he's so 1980s, outdated, very misogynistic sort of style. But the character type is still cool as hell. He's still a badass. And I'm like, well, what if you took that type of character and modernized him a little bit, didn't make him so so you don't have this damsel in distress wrapped around his leg, or the warrior woman wearing the bustier of eternal strength and the G string of power, you know.
In World of Warcraft, every armor set.
Like,
The loss of power. That's how she takes down her. I'm just kidding.
Yes, yeah, well, I'm just saying it makes great erotic fantasy art, but come on, is there any wonder that the girls didn't get into fantasy and gaming back in those days? I mean,
No. Actually, I was having a discussion with someone where some people still get upset when they come across a female that doesn't fit those crazy molds. Like, I remember when The Witcher came out on Netflix, and this guy wrote an article about how he couldn't understand how it wasn't believable that Queen Calanthe could carry a sword and belch like a man and be like all disgusting and come into like into this room with blood crusted on her body, but was able to suspend disbelief for everything else, like the magic and the gigantic whatever spider and hybrid looking people. But it's interesting how far storytelling has come, at least for female characters.
well, one of the things that I try to do, especially with female characters, um, I don't I don't I don't try to write out femininity, and I don't ever portray it as a weakness. And I think that's a big mistake a lot of people make, is they equate femininity with weakness. And like, you can't if you have a character that's feminine, that doesn't make her weak, that makes her feminine. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with femininity. Now, if you have a 120-pound woman, if she's a human woman, and you have a 250-pound man, they're not going to fight the same way. They're not going to fight with the same weapons. Why would they? Because a 125-pound man wouldn't fight with the same weapons as a 250-pound man. Why would that same size woman do that? And it becomes, I guess I don't like it when somebody basically puts breasts on a male character and calls it strong woman.
Yeah.
you know, it's not all you've done is take a male character, change its genitalia, and called it a female character. That's lazy writing to me. It's to me, if it's insult. I feel like if I did that, I'd be insulting women, and it's not interesting. Um, so I mean, a novel, a series that I'm going to be following up with. I have a 90,000 word sample of it already ready. One
A
of the
90,000 word sample.
oh yeah, this is going to be a
Oh
door
my God.
I mean,
90,000 word sample.
Well, one of the main characters is a warrior. She's a female, and she's strong. I mean, she's in good shape. But one of the lessons she tries to get, she sees this one. She becomes an instructor. She's a badass. But she fights with her mind. I mean, she uses her knowledge and her agility and what she has to her advantages. So as opposed to, she sees this woman in the practice yard swinging this gigantic sword, and she says, "What the hell are you doing?" And she goes, "Well, I keep on getting beat in sword practice." And he goes, "Well, why are you using? The guys you're fighting are always going to beat you in strength. Why are you trying to do something that's number one, stupid? Use a lighter sword." Use your advantages. Use what you have to your advantage. Use what he might consider his advantages and turn him into a disadvantage and whip his ass. And she actually brings a guard down off the wall, shows him how to do that. By imagine, she goes, "What's your primary weapon?" And she goes, "A spear." I said, "Okay, why? Why do you like that?" "Because you can keep a distance. You can do this and that." He goes, "Well, it's sort of like, hey, get that same concept with your sword." And you have to use your head. Just like if you have a character, your main character is not some Conan barbarian guy, he's going to have to be smart about the way he fights a barbarian when he runs into one. The ridiculousness of some of this stuff really bothers me, and I do get very bothered when somebody writes a feminine character who is not a warrior badass, but she's still strong and still powerful, and then because she's not sitting there beating the crap out of somebody with a sword, that makes her lesser. But what about Arya in Game of Thrones? One of the what I mean, she had that tiny little sword and a dagger, and she was kicking ass.
Oh yeah. I mean, we all know, like, when she came into our room and she had that murderous killer look, you were like, "Oh crap, what is she gonna do now?" But I think that's true. Like, I think you just have to know. It's just like in any kind of situation, you have to know your strengths and weaknesses. And like, strength doesn't always mean carrying a sword.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it could be situations where you're self-sacrificing,
Or being able to see a situation and see a way out and see a way through a situation that what I mean. How do you, the way somebody writes a thief or an assassin, the way they have to think about things. It's lazy writing when they try to basically just or write a sensitive male character by basically writing a woman and and changing the character's genitalia and just thinking that that's all you need to do. No, characters are complex. They're complex as like people are. I mean, I don't know any man, woman, or however somebody chooses to identify that is a cookie cutter of another. And when people try to make it like that, I think it's lazy writing.
Yeah,
I agree. Okay, we have to take a quick break, and we will be right back.
Sample locally sourced, quality distilled spirits in the beautiful Columbia River Gorge. At Skunk Brothers Distillery, we're family owned, brewing small batch grain to bottle spirits, just like our grandfather did back in the Prohibition era. From handcrafted bourbons and moonshine to flavored blends and cordials infused with local fruit. Join us for a tasting tour and buy Skunk Brothers spirits straight from the source.
It's all in the family at Skunk Brothers Spirits, located in Stevenson, Washington.
Okay, so we're back, and we're talking about writing characters. One of the things I think you said that it's very important is this. One thing I think some people get wrong is not building the character completely. What their strengths, what their weaknesses. You're trying to throw them in to have them do something, but you don't put all the layers around it. Like, one of my acting coaches always, I love this, they said, even if I'm walking into a scene for 5 seconds, right? Like I'm picking up a book and I'm walking out. But they taught me, they're like, know why you're in the room. Why are you picking up the book? Where did you come from? Like, even, obviously I came from off stage, but like, where did this character come from to walk in, to pick up the book? Where is it going when it opens the other side and leaves? What's on the other side? And it might sound silly because all I have to do is walk into the room, pick up a book and walk out. But
sort of inner world building.
yeah, but it's like authenticity when you're doing things. And you talk about these one-dimensional, and I don't think writers realize sometimes they are the worst stereotypers in the entire world. Like, there's a plug and play character and they're going to plug and play it, and they forget sometimes, I think, the dimensions. Like, one of my favorite books was Spellfire. Do you remember Forgotten Realms, the first book, Greenwood, Spellfire? And it had a character that could channel this amazing fire, but she started out and she was like a dish girl kind of thing, like at a tavern. I mean, she was not a badass by any stretch of the imagination. She never actually achieved badass status other than her ability to wield this particular thing.
Well, what about Ripley from Aliens? She had no particular skills. She was a scientist on a ship and ends up being one of the most badass heroines of all science fiction ever. I mean, she takes on the alien a bunch of times and kicks ass.
Well, I think also
Aliens is my favorite movie of all time. It is my favorite movie because she starts off the whole thing going, you guys, well, first of all, you're not even listening to me. Let me tell you how bad it is, but you're not listening. And then they go into the thing and she's still like, you're not paying attention. You're not paying attention to what I'm saying.
I've always thought Ripley was one of those characters that, because it was almost because she was just a normal person and did these extraordinary brave things, and people like to see that in themselves. They like to imagine that they would step up like that and be brave like that. And I think that's one thing as writers we can offer in our characters to people, so they can maybe see a piece of themselves. And that's when you get into these problems, when you start overpowering a character and make them so badass that that nothing can really, they're in no real danger.
Anita Blake. Wait, what did I say that out loud?
Well, I mean, think about why has Lord of the Rings lasted all these years? Because everybody sees a little Frodo in themselves, this just normal little hobbit, or they see themselves in Sam, the loyalty and the love and the bravery that they, I mean, and we all.
The reason why the ring was destroyed. I mean, if we're just being honest, like the gardener, the nice, sweet gardener who was loyal. I mean, we all know Frodo didn't have the, I mean, he brought it to Mount Doom. But we all know it was Sam that was like, no, you need to let go of this thing and drop it in there,
Well, I mean, the whole friendship dynamic that you have there. But importantly, they're just normal people. There's nothing extraordinary about them, but they do extraordinary things, and I think people react to that because we all see a hero inside ourselves. We all want to have this inner bravery, even though we don't know. I mean, we're never going to be faced with a dragon, so we don't know how we react. But
I don't know. After 2021, I'm
do not jinx us. I swear, if I walk out tomorrow and there's a dragon on my lawn, Brian, I am calling you, and I'm going to be FaceTiming, going, "What the actual fuck is this? You come deal with this."
Oh my goodness.
No, what's going to happen is one day there's going to be a boat out at sea, probably at the end of this year. And what's that movie where it was with Charlie Hunnam? Oh God, it escapes me, where there was the portal at the bottom of the ocean, and then they had to get into, they like connected minds with the, oh God, I'm butchering this movie.
You are butchering this horribly. We have no idea where you're going with
yes,
this.
You do. It's okay. It's the movie.
Keep going. No.
No, it's fine. We'll drink. Go.
Under the water, and these alien creatures were coming through, and Charlie Hunnam's character, the guy from I can't even remember the show. Must be
How's
drunk.
that vodka and water doing for you there?
Not very good right now.
You need to switch to wine.
I think you need to go back to wine.
Back to the wine. Oh my god! I feel like I need to Google this, but I'm just ready for like the next ending of the world to be something fantasy wise that we didn't.
There's a headline right now that says government can't explain these UFO sightings.
Yeah, that's been happening.
That's it. UFO report. Government can't explain 143 of 144 mysterious flying. It's happening. It's just where are you going to be when it happens?
Honestly, I hope not. I really, oh my God. There's people who believe the Earth is flat. These are the people you want to tell there's aliens?
No, the people. It's funny. You say that, but we heard the funniest thing. So I have a friend who is writing a novel about flat earthers, and one of the things I sent him the other day was if the Earth was really flat, capitalists would have already gotten a hold of it and put hotels at the end of the Earth to capitalize on seeing the edge of the Earth, and he was laughing his ass off.
Well, the thing is, a lot of these flat earthers, a lot of it's very deeply religious based, and this is what a lot of people don't understand. They're looking at this literalist view of the creation story of the Bible, and it's why you can't really shake them off of it. It's not because when you're talking about people in their faith, it's hard to shake people off, man. When it becomes a belief, I mean. I like fucking with the fundamentalists. I do. The whole Sorcerer song series is bashing the shit out of the fundamentalists. But you can never go wrong bashing the fundamentalists. And it's not like I'm going to offend them. They don't read.
Oh my God. Okay. Did you Google it?
And on the record, because I had to Google it, so I didn't feel completely stupid. Pacific Rim, y'all.
Oh, I've never seen that, but I'm aware of it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well,
Pacific Rim.
No,
by the way, if we get hate mail, you guys can direct that at Vanessa for not remembering the name of the movie.
Well, you couldn't even tell me what I was saying. Like you
because you were just making sounds. They weren't even words. Okay.
Come on. And then
okay. Next question. Let's talk a little bit about your fans, right?
Oh, awesome. Love my fans.
What is the best fan experience you've had?
The best fan experience I've had. Okay, yeah, that's an easy.
Best fan.
Oh no, that's an easy one. And I wish I had the letter here. I would just read the letter. But I'll do my best to do this story justice. A woman named Helen, who is a foster mom out of Great Britain, wrote me years ago and saying in this very touching letter, saying that she was the foster mom of a special needs child who had some genetic disorders, and was on the heavily on the spectrum, had and it's supposed to be she was hard to place, been through many schools that they would, because of her outbursts would, the way she dealt with situations, would get kicked out. What was supposed to turn be a short-term placement with her turned into a long-term. And at night, when you're when you're in that when you're autistic, routine is very important. And she would read the Horrid Henry books to her. And it was bedtime, but she never really paid attention. It was that she was reading the book, and that was the end of it. Well, they went on vacation, holiday as they called it, and Helen forgot the damn books. Well, her daughter, who was a teenager, had been reading the Goblin Chronicles and had it on her Kindle and said, hey, I have this. By the way, the Goblin Chronicles is YA fantasy. I made sure of that. I don't want to write anything that I don't want my son looking at, so it was YA fantasy. So she goes, this should be fine. You can read this to her. There's no content in here. She was a teenager, but also young because of her disabilities. First night did not go well, and neither did the second night. But the third night, a character came into play in the process of reading that sounded like her name. So she sort of looked up. That's my name, and she goes, yeah, that's your name. And she started listening and actually listening, as opposed to what she did before, listening to the story and making her reread parts so she make sure she understood it. And she gets through the first book, then into the second book, and because of this, and because of the way I had characters dealing with their problems, especially their interpersonal problems, it affected her behavior at school. All of a sudden, she took on a nurturing role at school.
Wow.
She started doing well, and that's how important my books became to her. And so her parents had abandoned her, for whatever reason. I'm not here to judge them, but yeah, I sort of am.
I was going to say, I think we can judge them in this circle.
Yeah,
You're allowed.
but I had written her, after reading this, I had written her a character letter, a letter from one of the characters.
Oh,
that is so amazing.
And so she has it. Helen prints it up and puts it in an envelope. It's a character to her from one of the characters in the book, And she was on her way to go to a visitation with her parents, and she knew when they got home, she would get to read the letter. And before, she would always question, why didn't they want me? Why didn't they want me? That kind of thing. But the whole time she's sitting there looking over, and she has the letter in the car, and she's just looking, can't keep her eyes off the letter. She can't wait to get home. And on the way home this time, she goes, I don't want them anyway.
oh,
And
wow.
the fact that my silly little story had such a profound impact on this girl's life is the best fan story. I don't even. I challenge Stephen King to have a better fan story than that.
No, that is amazing. And regardless if we write fiction to be fun and take people away from things and stuff like that, as artists, it's amazing to have impacts on people's life.
I had a soldier write me that he was army intelligence. He was a skinny guy. Basic training was nightmarish on him, and that one of my books got him through it. That it helped him take his mind off of it. I mean, you don't know. I'm not, like I said. I said it earlier in the interview that I'm not trying to change the world. I'm not trying to make you think deep thoughts.
Deep Thoughts by Brian.
Which, yeah. 42. 42 was the name, the price of a pint at Douglas Adams' local pub.
No.
That does not surprise me at all.
But anyway, I mean, but you never know what kind of impact you're going to have. And writing silly little stories like what I do, I mean, yes, they're not. I'm not under any kind of delusion that I'm changing the world or are going to bring about peace in the Middle East. But it can impact people's lives. It can have a positive impact on people's lives. And when I say a positive impact, I'm not saying you should alter content to be positive. Even like dark stories and horror and whatever escapism. There's one of the self-deprecating moments that people have as genre fiction writers is what I was just describing as we're not changing the world and we're not doing all these things. But I don't ever want to say that and devalue entertainment. That argument, art versus entertainment. I don't mind if somebody doesn't consider what I do art, because I find I derive a lot of satisfaction from knowing that somebody can come home from work after mind-numbingly boring and tedious, soul-sucking day at whatever job they're at and sit and grab one of my books and just get away from that for just a minute And if I accomplish that, then I've done everything I ever set out to do as a writer.
I feel 2021 shined a light on the importance of art, because I feel like a lot of people who are in different kinds of fields, specifically like, something finance or doctor or all these different things. And of course, all of those careers are super, super important. And sometimes people tend to like look down upon people who do art, writing, drawing, movie actors and all these different things. But you don't realize that when you don't have that sometimes, like especially 2021, when you couldn't go out and you couldn't do things, that it was art, quote unquote, that saved a lot of people, like mentally, like that mental health. And and I always hate when I hear about people who don't do art basically disrespect art, or if you are an artist of some sort and you disrespect other forms of art. Like if I write,
you have also some artists that give us a bad name, that make it hard for us by stepping into. Okay, we were talking before in the pre-interview about and I told you I don't get political, and I'm not about to here. And there's a good reason for that, beyond the fact that I don't want to cause controversy. I don't feel necessarily qualified just because I write books you like to advise you on how to,
Oh God, that is one of the biggest things. Just because we have whatever degree of fandom that listens to us does not mean we should get up on a soapbox and talk about subjects for which we are not experts.
Qualified to speak on. Exactly. I mean,
yeah.
I mean,
1,000%. And I think to your point on making an impact in the world, no, we didn't cure cancer, right? That's not happening with our book. But I think back to the stories and the games, which are a lot of writers. Like I did role-playing games from a very young age, and I was that female player who came in and played with all the boys. And I think that little impacts, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy had a huge impact on me as a book. I loved Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Like that, Monty Python, I could quote these things even to this day.
I had Melinda Snodgrass, Dan Wells, and Christopher Ricci, or whatever, rolling in the SUV, basically, laughing because I know the how do you know she's a witch? Well, she looked like one, Help!
I'm being repressed. Some more report. Lots of assault at you.
I don't look like this. They dressed me up like this. This isn't my nose. It's a false one.
Oh my God!
I love that. Like
in person, we're gonna have to hear you act this all out. Like seriously. Oh my God!
And I did, and I was sitting there. I'd had a couple of whiskeys at the we were doing Pensacon, and we were all out to dinner. And we were coming, and a lot of them were still like hanging out. They were going to party. But we were all tired, and I was ready to go back to the hotel, and so we all loaded up and we called the con, and they sent a car for us, and so we were heading back to the hotel. I don't know what got me to doing this, but I acted out that whole scene, and by the end they were like, "Holy shit! How do you know all that stuff?" And you do the voices too.
The Holy Grail, I can recite probably the entire Holy Grail. I love Monty Python. But these things actually, later in life, I realized had me approach certain situations a little bit differently.
Oh,
you know what I mean? And the importance,
a little more satirically.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and Douglas Adams didn't intend this, but one of the things that always struck me is, Earth is about to be destroyed to make way for a hyperspace
bypass, yeah.
Right? And I think this is the most hysterical thing when it starts off going to the zoning planning committee because Arthur Dent's house is about to get trampled to make way. And you just have to look you go, seriously? It's being moved out of the way, this entire planet full of life, because a freeway needs to happen. And gives you the magnitude of importance, weirdly, for me at least.
This bypass has got to be built. It's going to be built. Well, why does it necessarily have to be built? What's a bypass? Got to build bypasses.
Exactly. And you have to go. Like, how ridiculous is it that this means so little to this group of people? And then when you look at situations and you try to wonder why people are not seeing the significance you're seeing, and I go, hyperspace bypass. To them, this is a hyperspace bypass. Move it out of the way.
A great story about Douglas Adams that my co-author on the Akiri series, Steven Savile, he told me he was in line to meet Douglas Adams, and the queue went around the block, and he had one of Adams's books. He goes up, finally gets up to him, asks him to sign the book, and goes, "Why would you want me to sign a book?" And he said the perfect thing to the perfect man at the perfect time. He goes, "Because one day you'll be dead."
Oh my God.
And he says Adams just lost his shit, started laughing his ass off.
Well, I think it's true. It's interesting when people get signed. Like, let's talk about fan signings. What is it like for you when fans want you to sign the books? Like, I don't know, Vanessa.
Listen. This is my signed copy. It's yes. I mean, you know what it is? Pensacon being around your booth with all, like, you got Deanne Wells, and you got Melinda Snodgrass, and you just got all of you, everyone in that. I mean, it's intimidating. The whole time I was like, "Hi, I'm just happy to be here." Like, I'm trying not to look like I'm grinning like a fucking idiot, and like,
I promise you, not a person in that booth feels anything like that. You know what I mean? We're when we go, whenever any of me, I have fans that literally just lose their minds that they've seen when they've seen me. That have been reading my book since my very first book, and have followed my career. And I know I ain't Stephen King, but to these people, but to certain people, I am who I am, and they don't realize I don't feel it. And Dan, when you're around Dan's a real well known writer. He doesn't feel it. You can tell by when you interact with the guy. Neither does Melinda. You know what I mean? And it's weird to get that. Like, you almost don't want to disappoint somebody because we're just such average, normal ass people. And
I think though that's a strength. Like, I met Dan Wells actually, oh my God, 5 years ago at DragonCon because he was signing at a Bard's Tower booth, and I bought his book because I'm not a serial killer. I'm like, oh my God, I got to buy this book. So I bought 2 of his books. He signed them, and one night, possibly inebriated, but I sent him. I'm like, "Do you want to be on the podcast?" Like, this is my ode to life, is get drunk and email all the famous people and ask if they want to be on the podcast. And when he was on the podcast, and like now we game with him, right? Because he does professional DMing. I fangirled.
Dan's a super duper nice guy too.
Oh, he's amazing. I totally fangirled when he got on the podcast at first because I'm like,
are y'all gonna be in North Carolina in Raleigh at the end of July?
Which is that for Green City? Is it the Green City?
That is Raleigh is a con, Galaxy Con.
Yeah, we're at Tampa Bay Comic-Con at the end of July. Tampa Bay Comic-Con is down here.
We're not. I don't think we're going to be there.
No, you guys aren't. But anyway, I met him and now interacting with him, and he gets me interacting with him, interacting with Melinda Snodgrass. As I've gotten to do this show, I love how real every author is, because I'm an author, I'm a publisher, but I'm also a fan of you guys. And so it's neat to talk to you guys, but I go, these are real people and some of the nicest.
You don't have it like actors, though. It's not like anybody. It's like I was sitting there, and this is no shit. I was sitting there at Pensacon behind a big stack of my own books. A guy walks up and goes, "Oh, dude, I love this guy. Oh, man. I'm like, oh, it says here that the authors are here. And I'm like, yeah, dude, right here. We don't get that kind of, like, you know, I don't walk into a room and somebody recognizes me.
I'm sure sometimes people do, but it's interesting. Like, I've watched people at booths walk up, and I love talking to people. Vanessa will tell you this. I will walk up to, I don't care who they are, and start talking to them like that, whatever. But I've watched people be pensive around author booths, and I always think to myself, we should put a sign on the booth that says, come talk to us, we want to talk to you.
Well, you know, I'm going to be in Tampa. Well, I got the Orlando, the fanboy thing in Orlando, Fanboy Expo or whatever.
Oh, really?
In Orlando, but while I'm there, I'm going to go over to Ybor City in Tampa, right outside of Tampa.
Yeah.
And I'm friends with Josh, Shade Tree Surgeon. He's does a motorcycle channel at a bar called the Dirty Shame in Ybor City, and they support a cause called Forgotten Angels, which is for kids who age out of the foster system, and they just don't have anywhere to go. I mean,
my company,
they help them anything like from a haircut to filling out a job app to, you know, they're actually right now in the process of building a home for single mothers so they have a safe place to be.
Yeah, my company has supported the Forgotten Angels at holiday time.
I was going to do, because we were supposed to do Tampa Comic-Con, but we're not. But I had already told them I'm going to do something, so I'm going to do just a solo thing myself, but I'd love to have you guys there with me when I do it.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to get a bunch of authors to just give me some signed books, and I'm going to auction it off and, like, you know, and try to raise some money for Forgotten Angels. I mean, because to me personally, that kind of program is personally important. I was never in the foster program, but I had a real tough time growing up. And if you
can support, I think it's amazing. I'm a firm believer of supporting charities that help, and especially local charities. There's a lot of work, both with normal work and business, and I volunteer at school. I think it's amazing, and we will be there, and we will give you books and any support you need. And
well, both of y'all are writers too. Sign some books, and, you know, I mean, we'll do what I was thinking about doing is doing a little author panel, and then, you know, get a little Q&A. I know Josh can, like, make it to where we could do it at the bar there. You know.
Oh, that's perfect. That is perfect.
To drink and be on panels, and then you're required to reenact all the Monty Python.
Oh, yes.
I have to.
Well, between me and Brian, we could probably do the entire movie and get charged for it. There we go.
So logically, if she weighs the same as a duck, she's made of wood. And
she's a witch. She's a witch.
Oh,
Bring out your dead. Bring out your dead. I'm not dead yet. Well,
he says he's not dead.
Rehearse some lines so I can hang with y'all during this whole.
Okay, you know what, Vanessa, I appreciate you. You need to watch a lot more Python. Okay, we're nearing the end of this particular episode. Brian, what advice would you give authors out there?
Oh, well, okay. Huh.
Oh, I'm sorry to put you on the spot there with your
well, you know, I mean, the thing is, I hate being like, you know, oh, write a lot, right? You know, because it's like, you know, you hear the same thing. Don't. If you want to be a writer, just be a writer. Don't have any expectations. You gotta coming into this. Remember, in the entire world, in genre fiction, there are 15,000 authors making a living. So, whether you become an indie or go traditional, it's a hard, tall mountain to climb, but you can do it. But don't go in there thinking that with stars in your eyes, because if you do it for anything other than the love of writing, you're in it for the wrong reasons. Because if you're in it for the money, that's probably not going to happen.
I love it. Okay, how do fans find you? What is the best place to find your books and everything?
Well, you got briandanderson.com. You can look up just Brian D. Anderson on Google, and I'm all over the daggone place.
Except for Twitter. We know that.
No. Brian D. Anderson 7 at Twitter. I do have a Twitter account. All I ever do on Twitter is when I have a new release or something like that, I'll like post it there. I almost never check Twitter. And I'm not active. I got 1,000 followers on Twitter. So it's not, You
haven't built up the millennia of followers.
No, I have not. It's not something I do a lot. I don't really use Snapchat and all that kind of stuff. But you can find me on Amazon, the Amazon page. My books are available on every platform, in all formats. If you're into audiobooks, which I love, they are definitely available there.
So, what is your latest release?
My latest what?
Release. What is the latest book?
The latest thing I have out is the final book of the Godling Chronicles sequel. Book 8 is called Ascension. And it just came out last month, or this month actually, on the 8th of this month. But I have the latest series I have out, of course, is the Sorcerer Song, which book 1 and 2 are out. The Bard's Blade and A Chorus of Fire, and the next book I'll probably have out is going to be the Sword's Elegy, which is book 3. I'm also working on a dystopian sci-fi series of novellas for Literary Cat Productions, which is Alexi's. I'm doing a print thing with him called Talos. It's a dystopian sci-fi set in today's time. It's a little bit of a departure from what I normally do, and then I'm going to be working on a thing called the working title right now is A Forge of Worlds, but I think that title's taken by DC Comics, so I'm gonna have to change it. But that's the 90,000 word sample I was talking about.
The sample.
Yeah, that's gonna be my next thing that I'm pitching to tour. So that's me in a nutshell.
Very, very cool. You have been thoroughly amazing to have on this podcast. Thank you so much. Okay, so this has been Drinking with Authors. I've been your host, Erica Lance.
And I'm Vanessa Valiente.
Our guest has been Brian D. Anderson, and we will see you next time.